Welcome to the show. I'm Nick Gromicko. Today I'm with Michael Pagoulatos, and he's from Strata. He's a business consultant, but he's also a home inspector. And he's taken what he knows as a business consultant and applied it to the home inspection industry. And he's going to help us out here today. Michael?
I'm glad to be here, Nick. Thank you for inviting me. It's a gorgeous, sunshiny day in Boulder.
Thanks. So let me ask you a question. What do we do as home inspectors?
As a home inspector, we provide a service, obviously, to our clients, but this service is two-faceted. Part of the service is obviously the technical part of the inspection.
The home inspection itself?
Yes, inspecting the building. But the second and the most important part of the service that we provide to our client, the part that can make or break your career, the part that can make you be around in 10 years or out of business in 1 year,
right,
is the second part of the service, and that is, can you as a home inspector make your client feel safe, secure, and well taken care of? Can you make them feel warm and fuzzy, that they are in good hands?
I often say that the actual technical part of the home inspection, doing the actual home inspection, is just a very small part of being a home inspector. Am I right?
Absolutely, considering the fact that in my home state of Texas, when a prospective client picks any inspector whatsoever, they automatically know that this inspector is licensed. They know that they had to pass the hardest test for licensing in the United States. They know that they take continuing education classes, and they know that they are insured because it is the law.
It's the hardest place to get a license in the world.
It is. The state of Texas is the first state to regulate home inspections, and they have the strictest, the most difficult requirements for a candidate to become a licensee.
So where everyone's licensed and insured, it's not really a matter of who is the best home inspector. It's really who's the best home inspection businessman. Am I right? Does the businessman win in this situation?
Hands down. The businessman wins hands down.
It beats the technical inspector.
Any competent inspector is not going to miss anything major. Any competent inspector is not going to miss a roof, a foundation, a structural defect. Even an experienced inspector is going to miss some little things. But that's not what the inspection is about. The inspection is not a guarantee of how the house is going to perform, or you miss a little paint defect on the windowsill. The most important thing in the home inspection is the service that you provide. Think about this. Think, why did the client hire you? The client hired you in order to be their professional partner, in order to be able to give them enough information for them to make an educated decision, to be in a position of comfort, to make a decision of whether they're going to invest a significant part of their assets in this building.
And they hired you, a home inspector, a human being. They didn't hire a home inspection.
Absolutely not. What I sell is not a home inspection.
It's not a home inspection at all?
No. What I sell is Michael Pagoulatos, or more precisely is the level of comfort that I can provide to my client. I want my client to know that now and for as long as they own their home, they can pick up the phone on a subject on which they know very little or nothing about, and they will have a professional partner. They will have somebody they can look up to who's going to help them out.
Wow. Now, I've developed a lot of certifications for home inspectors, and I tell my own members, stop leading with all your certifications, your insurance, your license, your education, all this stuff in front of you. That stuff should be supporting documentation. You should be out in front on all your marketing. Am I right about this?
Absolutely. Every home inspector should assume automatically one thing, that they are the most qualified, most knowledgeable person regarding this transaction, the inspection of the building, than anybody involved in this transaction.
So when they go in a room and they're doing a home inspection, they are really the most qualified person in that room to talk about this issue.
They are the person who were contracted to perform the inspection. The lender is not performing the inspection. The seller's agent or the buyer's agent is not performing the inspection simply because that's not their area of expertise. It is the inspector's area of expertise, and every inspector should take it for granted that they are the expert in the room regarding this subject.
I don't get that sense from a lot of inspectors. I get the sense that in licensed states they push their license out in front of them, almost like they're insecure about their own expertise.
I suspect that this may be a misplaced or misattributed insecurity, in the sense that it's being attributed to some perceived lack of expertise. I think the truth needs a little bit more digging into, and this has nothing to do with the inspector's technical expertise. I believe that what they present as a insecurity in the technical expertise is actually an insecurity in other areas which have nothing to do with inspections and nothing to do with the technical ability, and it has to do with emotion, with how the inspector looks at themselves, and with the ability of the inspector to present the image that he wants to present to everybody that he comes in contact with.
That's exactly it, that image. From a marketing standpoint, and I love marketing, I always look at something from the outside. And when I look at a lot of home inspectors' brochures and websites, to me, it almost feels like they're trying to defend themselves and that there's a weakness behind them, that they're trying to offset with their marketing. I believe their marketing is backwards in some regards.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that most of my fellow inspectors should back away from advertising how many hours of continuing education they take, or how many emblems and little stickers they can put on their website or their inspector bag. And you know why, Nick? Because, and I mean this simply as a matter of fact, none of this matters.
It doesn't.
None of this matters. It doesn't matter if you take 2 or 50 hours of continuing education, because most people don't even know that you have to take continuing education.
So would you say that, what is the correlation, weak or strong, between technical expertise and business success?
The technical expertise and the business success are totally independent of each other.
There's no correlation at all?
There is no correlation at all, assuming licensing, which assumes a basic competence. Of course, the more an inspector is engaged in the business, the more experience they will get, and they will become better. But from the get-go, just being licensed, you are assumed to have a basic expertise.
I tell guys who are pushing for licensing in other states that aren't licensed, that once licensing goes through, the best home inspector doesn't win. The best businessman wins. Am I right?
That's exactly right. Licensing is important. Because before 1985, I believe, in Texas, which was the first state to regulate home inspectors, anybody could just call themselves a home inspector, go out, perform whatever they want to perform, and call it an inspection. So licensing is important in the sense that it sets a minimum standard that consumers can expect from a home inspector.
It's a minimum.
That's the base. And that is assumed, and that will be required out of anybody who is a licensed inspector. So what is the point, for example, to advertise that I have 2 arms and 2 legs and a head? Everybody does. What you have to, what will determine your success as a businessman or not is obviously not your technical expertise, but your ability to communicate to your clients, of the level of service that you will provide to them that makes you a cut above anybody else. Something else related to that, I have never spoken ill of another fellow home inspector, not out of a sense of camaraderie, because my friends are 100 home inspectors I know personally. The other thousands I have never met. So it cannot be a camaraderie or even a misplaced camaraderie. The reason I have never spoken against another inspector, and I advise my fellow home inspectors to do the same, is it says something about you.
It conflicts with the image you're trying to put out.
Exactly. Are you better because you can find the mistakes other inspectors make, or are you better because of the services that you can provide? What you want to communicate to your clients is what you will do for them, not what some other inspector didn't.
So I see a lot on websites, and I control a lot of websites in this industry, that home inspectors plaster all their qualifications on the front page, so much that when I surf their website, I can't even find a picture of the home inspector I'm trying to hire.
Well, that is kind of tricky, Nick. You're absolutely correct, and actually, I've gone to the NATSU website and I've read some of your guidelines, which I assume you wrote, regarding writing websites. A lot of that is golden information. It's not magic. I recommend to everybody to go to the NACHI website and read about how to build a website. I think that my fellow home inspectors should do away with their seals of approval and their hours
E&O insurance
and E&O insurance, because we
nonsense.
already know everybody has this.
Right.
They should concentrate on their message. And their message should not be just pretty words. Anybody can come up with some pretty words or hire somebody who is a wordsmith to write the best speech. You have to be able to translate what you are telling you, what you are promising your client, into tangible benefits, into dollars and cents, into physical comfort in the house, into safety for their children in the house. That is gold. Those are things that the consumer can use. This is what the consumer is buying. The consumer is not buying actually the inspection of their walls. They're buying the safety of their children in this house. They're buying their comfort when they're sitting in the living room with their family. They're not too cold. They're not too hot. They're buying energy savings. Oil is going to $100 a barrel. Electricity is not going to get any safer. These are the things that you're providing to your customer. How comfortable are they going to be in their living room?
And they want to buy Michael. They don't want to buy a technical inspection.
If they want to buy a technical inspection, they can pick just any inspector who's licensed in the state of Texas. Any inspector will give them a basic, competent inspection. But how many of these fellow inspectors can make you feel secure that your baby girl, the most precious person, the most important person in this whole world, is going to be safe and comfortable in this house?
So it ends up being a people business. Not a flashlight business.
It's exactly what it is. It is a people business, and like I said earlier, and not to disparage myself or my fellow home inspectors, but learning to inspect a building is not rocket science. You learn all the parameters that the wise heads in the state government have determined that you need to observe, and that's that. At this level, you have provided a competent technical service, but that's not what's going to make you a successful businessman. And in my classes and as a personal coach to fellow inspectors, there are some things that some of us will have because we were forced to develop. For example, Inspector A may have certain skills, may have certain people skills, may have certain communication skills, because at some point in their lives they are forced to acquire these skills because of a previous career, for example.
Right.
And another fellow Inspector B did not have this requirement of them. They were not required to develop communication or people skills or marketing skills or sales skills. That doesn't mean that they are not a good inspector. They could be the absolutely best inspector there is. But that's not what's going to make them a business success.
So are you on lists, realtor lists, that put out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different inspectors they prefer? Are you on some of these lists?
Absolutely. I try to be on those lists, and in order to test...
Because that's where you're really competing. That is really where at the level of competition.
No, that is not the level of competition, and that is not competition for me.
Why?
Or for any other inspector who realizes what it is that they're actually marketing. They need to realize that they're not marketing inspections.
So if you're on a list of 5 people, 5 other inspectors, you don't plan on getting just 20% of that work, do you?
No, I plan on getting 100% of that work.
All of it?
I don't care if the person puts me last on the list. Actually, I prefer to be last because that reinforces every single time, that reinforces my theory. And my theory is that if I'm on that list, whether I'm first or last, if the prospective client calls me...
So if you get a shot at it...
If I get a shot at it, if they call me on the telephone, I will be able to successfully communicate to them why their comfort and their family's safety absolutely hangs on them hiring Michael Pagoulatos.
One of the biggest complaints I get from my members is that they're treated like garbage. They're treated like the hired help. Not so much by the clients, but by realtors and real estate agents. Real estate agents sort of treat the home inspector as if he's the low man on a totem pole.
I know.
Any truth to this?
There is some truth to this. I work with hundreds of real estate agents, the overwhelming majority of which are the consummate professional who has their client's best interest in mind.
But they're in a stressful situation.
Yes, but this is not. This has nothing to do with real estate agents specifically. It has to do again with human beings. You're going to have people who are going to behave one way or the other in any industry. A general advice to my home inspectors is, if you don't want to be treated like the hired help, don't act like it. And don't act like it has many facets. One is
don't dress like it.
Number one, don't dress like the hired help. Consider this. A good client, a real estate agent of mine, who's trying to sell a $1.5 million home to their client who earns $500,000 a year, and my real estate agent client is outside this house in their Benz or their Beamer, and they are trying to project the image that's going to make the $500,000 a year earner feel comfortable transacting with this agent.
And you're part of the agent's team at this point.
You are part of the transaction. You cannot show up in your cut-off jeans, in your long ponytail, in your T-shirt, and your 5 earrings. I have nothing against ponytails. I have nothing against earrings. I have nothing against cut-off jeans. But you have to realize that this is a business transaction. You're projecting an image.
Right.
And good or bad, people are just, we judge people by their appearance. We judge a book by its cover every day.
But what if you're the best technical inspector in town? You still have to dress like it?
You have to be able to get the chance to show that you are the best technical inspector in town. And if you try to become a part of the team of the real estate agent who's trying to sell the $2 million home, you cannot show up in your beat-up pickup truck with a front right fender rusting, in your jeans and your T-shirt.
Or you're going to get treated like the hired help.
Because you're going to look like the help, and you're going to be treated like the hired help. You would judge a book by its cover, and it's not right. What is inside is what matters, but you have to get the chance to show what is inside. You have to get the chance to show that you are the most competent inspector. You are the person who will make these clients feel safe and secure. And if you don't dress the part, if you don't speak the part, if you don't act the part, you're never going to get the chance.
Are you intimidated by a multi-million-dollar big listing agent, big real estate agent, clients that are maybe Nobel laureates, senators, lawyers, doctors? You're going into a room as a home inspector with all of them in the kitchen. Does this intimidate you?
Absolutely not. And this bears a little bit of discussion. In another life, I spent 20 years in corporate America. I had to acquire the skills to go into a board meeting where I will speak with middle and upper management on their level, in their language, and be able to discuss any subject that is important to them. A lot of my fellow inspectors haven't had to develop the skills, but all is not lost. The smart individual, not the smart home inspector, realizes their shortcomings. And realizing...
he's smart enough to realize where
that's worth gold.
Weak.
Realizing your weaknesses is worth gold. Because what is the next step after you realize that you have a weakness? The smart person will seek ways to improve on the weakness, to acquire new skills. That's where I come in. I can help a lot of my fellow inspectors, and I do this on a daily basis, to, at the very least, improve, go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notches from where they were before. Some people are...
But I got inspectors that say they don't even have the stomach to go and talk to 12 realtors at a sales meeting. They can't do it.
Well,
how am I going to take somebody like that? How would you help that person? Is it hopeless at that point?
Absolutely not.
No.
Everybody can be helped. Everybody can improve. Now, nobody should have unrealistic expectations, but they should definitely have the expectation of improving themselves. And in this particular case, when you said they don't have the stomach to walk into a room with 100 realtors and speak to them.
Or 12.
Or 12.
Or even talk to one broker. The
reason could be varied. The reason could be as simple as they never had to develop public speaking skills before. If a fellow home inspector used to be a roofer, the job of a roofer does not require that you acquire any social skills or any communication. It's as simple as that. That doesn't mean that the person is stupid. It means that the person hasn't had to acquire the skills. But if they're smart enough to realize that they need the skills, they're smart enough to seek a solution, to seek somebody who can teach them these communication skills. It could be as simple as joining one public speaking club.
Now, everybody's going to go to their own level, but everybody can improve.
That's right. Nobody can get to level 10 from one.
I mean, if you're an introvert, you're never going to be able to be waving your arms in front of 100 realtors giving a flamboyant speech about your inspection services. It's never going to happen.
No, but all is not lost either. This person is smart enough to realize their shortcomings. They must be smart enough to realize also that for a variety of reasons they cannot acquire the skills. So what is the next logical thing to do? You partner up with somebody who does.
Right.
What I'm trying to tell you is that there is a solution for every situation, and I can almost guarantee significant improvement for every single person.
A lot of times I take the introverted home inspector who's having this problem and tell him, just try to work with just one agent, one-on-one. In a quiet room, in the office, that might help. And it seems to work a little bit for them too.
Although there are solutions that can apply to demographic groups of people, of home inspectors. If you've noticed, I avoid putting people into categories as home inspectors or real estate agents. I view them as human beings, because as human beings, we're not all that different from each other. We have a lot of the same needs, the same desires, the same need to be liked, the same need to be recognized, the same need to provide a good service to somebody and then be happy and grateful and us gratified that could provide the service. All these things have nothing to do with real estate agents and home inspectors.
It's a people business again.
It's a people business, absolutely, Nick.
Okay. Now, a lot of inspectors have these nightmare inspections where they're doing an inspection for a young lady and she brings her contractor father or her roofer uncle to the job, and he's going to help you with the inspection. A lot of my inspectors have actually walked off inspections saying, look, if you want to hire him to do the inspection, you go ahead. I'm done here, and leave. Is this something you have done in the past? Have you?
Absolutely not. Actually, Nick, this is one of the best opportunities for the inspector to shine, improve his business, and increase his clientele.
At the expense of the father or the uncle? Do you beat him down?
At nobody's expense. You simply utilize... Have you heard the saying that says, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade?
Right.
This is a classic example of exactly that. When you have Uncle Joe, who's built a couple of additions and who's expert in building, and your client brought Uncle Joe to make sure that the inspector doesn't miss anything because Uncle Joe is going to catch it.
Knows everything.
Knows everything. Beautiful. I love it. I wish every one of my clients would bring an Uncle Joe with them, because it will be an opportunity for you to show Uncle Joe a thing or two. And if Uncle Joe is a man who enjoys this type of thing, this will be a good experience for him. Number two, utilize him. Utilize him to reinforce what you yourself are advising your client to do.
And reinforce the decision to hire you.
And by doing that, you're making Uncle Joe look good to his nephew. Right. Uncle Joe picks up a couple of things that he didn't know before.
Right.
And you have a support system for what you're trying to do. Provide an excellent service and increase your business.
You kind of partner with them on the job.
Exactly. You make Uncle Joe your friend, your partner, your helper in this transaction. Uncle Joe, not only is he not an impediment to to doing your job, he's a godsend. I wish every client would bring an Uncle Joe with him.
And so you try to make him look good too.
Of course, absolutely. What are you going to gain out of making anyone in any situation look bad?
And this is the most difficult situation I find, is when a person who knows nothing about homes has to keep a poker face, your client, and ask a couple of questions of the inspector that are so dumb you can't believe it. He asks if the flue pipe to the hot water tank is the sewer line. How do you handle this so as not to embarrass him?
It's a golden opportunity to make Uncle Joe shine. You don't have to, there are more than one ways to skin a cat. You don't tell Uncle Joe, well, you know, the vent shouldn't be 10 feet like you said.
You're wrong.
You're wrong. You're not going to get anything out of that. You're going to increase the tension of everybody because your client is not going to know at this point, should I trust Uncle Joe, who is my kin and my blood, or the home inspector whom I'm paying several hundred.
Instead of...
You introduced it by being hostile to Uncle Joe. You need to get Uncle Joe on your side. You need to tell Uncle Joe,
Good question.
that was an excellent question, but let me explain to you why it needs to be 15 feet and not 10 feet. You didn't call Uncle Joe stupid. You didn't make him look bad in front of his family.
You made him look wise, asking the right question.
You asked him exactly, Nick. You made him your partner. He's helping you in your transaction.
And he's your partner long after this inspection is over, when he's at the bar tonight or bowling or whatever.
Absolutely.
He says, I know a good home inspector.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is no point, there is no percentage in putting anybody down and making anybody look good. Now, if you don't believe in the quality of the service, just don't build them up. But there is no point. That's exactly, I go back to what I said earlier. I have never spoken, and I advise my fellow inspectors to never speak an ill word against anybody else. Instead, concentrate on your energy in explaining to your client, communicating what you will provide to them, not what somebody else doesn't.
Now, sometimes after an inspection, or often on a re-inspection where another inspector comes in, or the seller has his own opinions about the inspection report, often that are adverse to what you are saying, there's some conflict in the deal. Someone's going to call you. Some listing agent's going to call and say, you know, the seller says you're wrong.
Okay.
How do you handle this? Do you do the same technique, or do you beat them down?
You never beat anybody down. Like we said before, there's no percentage in it. There's nothing, absolutely nothing
to gain
from it.
Nothing to gain from winning clearly.
You need to try to turn anybody who has chosen or has been pushed into an adversary position to you. You need to make them part of your team. You need to educate them. Because that will make them feel knowledgeable and empowered. And guess who gave them the knowledge and the empowerment? You did. All of a sudden, you are the good guy. You are their friend.
Well, somebody calls and says, inspector says the tar paper on a drip edge should be over the drip edge, not under.
This is great because
you're wrong.
Because this is black and white. In the great state of Texas, the home inspectors and real estate agents are regulated by TREC, the Texas Real Estate Commission.
Right. On
their website, they contain the entire standards of practice for home inspectors.
And they say which way it should be.
They say which way it should be. It's as simple as sending an email to the person with the contentious remarks.
Right.
Send them a link to the standards of practice. You do not allow emotion to enter this transaction at all.
But is that how you would handle it? You'd say, you're wrong, buddy. Here's the link.
It depends on how belligerent or how emotional they get.
Well, you're Greek and hot-headed. How much are you going to take? At what point do you tell them go jump in a lake?
I remember one thing, Nick, that I'm not in this business to appear smarter or more confident than anybody else. I'm in this business to provide my client with the level of service that they expect.
So in a conflicting situation, you always keep your cool.
I will always keep my cool. Whether I'm wrong or right can be proven or disproven with a simple link at the standards of practice, which will tell you who is right technically. But you don't want to tell the person who just told you you're wrong, here it is, you dummy, I was wrong. Now shut your mouth and don't make any comments again.
Right.
You want to educate them. You want to tell them this is how it is, so next time you have to explain this to one of your clients, you are the wise one. You are the knowledgeable one. You know exactly what you are talking about.
A lot of real estate agents can't even do this.
And you want to make yourself a resource, a knowledge resource for the seller's agent who just called you and accused you of being wrong.
Do a lot of realtors rely on you to keep the negotiations going smoothly?
Absolutely. Actually, they rely on me to do this after I introduce this possibility myself. After I make it a point to tell the realtor, you, the seller's agent and the buyer's agent are disagreeing on this one subject, and I got 3 calls from the buyer's agent telling me they had this back and forth, and the seller's agent is adamant.
And a lot of it isn't even money, it's pride between them.
It's pride, it's stress, it's a bad day, their cup of coffee wasn't good that morning.
Jerked over.
Their kid dropped their grades at school. It could be anything. Again, think human beings.
Now, my understanding is when an agent uses Michael for the first time, you make that agent come to where you present the report and the findings to your client and observe that presentation? Why?
Absolutely, because I heard when I was doing research a long time ago about what is it that clients, agents, anybody involved in this transaction complains about. Which are the biggest complaints?
Right.
One complaint was that my so-and-so inspector met me at the end of the inspection, and it was, here's my inspection report. Give me the money. I got to go to my next appointment.
Got another one.
I have another one.
I'm doing 3 today.
I advise my fellow inspectors to spend as much time at the end of the inspection walking around the building and discussing their findings with their client as it takes.
The discussion of the findings is such an important part of the home inspection. Again, it's not part of the technical inspection itself, but it's really a part of the business, isn't it?
Absolutely, because when your client is going to read your report later on, it will not be something totally foreign to them. It will be something that you pointed out to them,
right,
which they actually saw in the house while you were right next to them and you were right there to answer any questions that they had. This is worth gold.
But I don't grasp the concept of why you force a new agent to watch that. Is it marketing?
Well, I don't force them, but I strongly request that they do me the honor of attending my presentation to our common client.
Once.
Because we're talking about a new agent,
right,
with whom I'm doing.
Doesn't know you.
Because once they attend one of my presentations, they will be so confident that their client is in the best hands. They will be so confident that any issue that comes up with the house will be able to be taken care of by the inspector, not only during the inspection, but long term, that they will not think about doing business with anybody else. This is gold. This is money in the bank. It should not be viewed as, for example, if an inspector does 2 inspections a day and they have to spend an hour extra making their presentation to the client.
That's 2 hours a day.
The wrong way to view this is I had 2 to 3 hours of wasted time today.
It's not wasted, is it?
Absolutely not. This is money in the bank. It assures you that this new agent is going to want to provide the same high level of comfort and security to every single one of their clients. And they will make sure that they do that by entrusting you to do it.
A really big real estate agent, one time, the first time she asked me to do an inspection, she said she wasn't going to be there for the inspection. I told her I don't want the inspection then. She said, I beg your pardon, what do you mean you don't want it? I said, because I'm not interested in this inspection. I want all your business for the rest of your career. I said, if you show up at this inspection, I'm going to end up with all your business for the rest of your career.
I couldn't agree with you more.
It happened to be true.
But to reach that point, everybody has to have the know thyself.
Right.
Everybody must know their talents and their shortcomings. And the smart person is not the person who has shortcomings or lack of skills. The smart person is who realizes their shortcomings and lack of skills and takes steps to improve upon them. And that's where I come in with both general classes and individual coaching.
Who can benefit from this advice that you give and the teachings that you offer? A new inspector, or is it mostly for a veteran inspector?
My coaching and my advice has very little to do with home inspections.
The actual inspection itself?
Exactly. The actual inspection itself is taken care of by the individual inspector's technical training. My advice does not have an experienced level demographic. It applies to a newbie who's in his first year as an inspector, or to an inspector who's been doing it for 10 years, precisely because it has nothing to do with the inspection itself. It has to do with business.
Now, recently the market got a little soft, and it was sad to watch some of our best inspectors who are technically superior to everyone that I know, they just went out of business. They couldn't compete any longer in a soft market. Why is that? Can your advice help them?
Obviously, the reason they may have gone out of business is not their lack of technical competence.
No, they were the very technically most proficient inspectors that I knew.
Absolutely. And barring unforeseen circumstances that some reason, health or something else that drained them of a huge supply of cash, for example,
A lot of them said they couldn't compete.
or took
in
the
this market.
time, then the deficit can be looked for in marketing, in presentation, and in how they project the image that they need to project in order to not only stay in business, but to increase the revenue, to increase the business, increase their ability to provide a high-quality service. I have been blessed, I have been lucky enough in this soft market to be booked 6 days a week only because I want to have a day off.
But you could book 7 days a week. If
I
you
could
wanted
book
to.
7 days a week, at least 30% of that, double bookings every day. And this has nothing to do with my ability as an inspector.
And you don't charge cheap. You don't compete on price.
Absolutely not. I will not compete with people who will try to undercut me in price because, Nick, you don't need me, and actually any consumer doesn't need me to tell them that most of the time, that some of the time you may get lucky, but most of the time you get what you pay for. I'm expensive. I charge above the average.
But let's say a guy calls you and says, well, I can find an inspector for $200. Michael, why can't you do it for $200?
Well, first I will explain to them that although money is an important factor, it should never be the most important factor. When you're looking for a doctor or for an attorney, you don't call them and haggle about the price, do you? No. What you're trying to do is you try to find the most competent attorney, the most competent inspector, the most competent professional for whatever service.
If they want a $99 inspection, they could probably find it in Texas.
I could give them a couple of names of inspectors in Texas who will do an inspection for $99 and they will be out of your hair in an hour. But is that what you're looking for?
I think in Texas you have that, no offense, but you have a stupid standardized reporting format, which I am opposed to. I'm opposed to commoditizing our industry by having the state demand what we do in terms of reporting. But a lot of inspectors say, well, since our reports are all similar, the only thing I have left to compete on is price. Are they right?
They are absolutely wrong. What is mandated by the state of Texas is the format of the report, not the content of the report. The content of the report can be what you want it to be. It could be the absolute minimum of the standards of practice set forth by the state of Texas, or it could be a tome of 100 pages providing anything from upgrades to maintenance information to cooking recipes to anything you want it to be. Don't get stuck up in the fact that there is a format mandated. The content is not mandated. It's what you want it to be.
Now, earlier you taught me that the actual home inspection is not what's important. Is the report what's important, or is it you? Which is more important?
The report is nothing but a manifestation of your attitude, of your business attitude, and of the level of service that you want to provide. So it is part of you because this is how you manifest your service. This is the product that your client will read. And from that, they will decide how useful this information is. So the information is in the report is of absolute importance, but again, do not get stuck on the fact that you have a standardized format. This is very important, and it's worth saying again, the content of the report is what you want it to be.
Especially when setting your fee structure. It just seems like a lot of people in Texas, a lot of inspectors in Texas, throw their hands in the air and say, we just can't charge more than a certain amount. And when I tell them that over the past 20 years that I've been in this business, your prices have stayed the same. So when you correct for inflation, you're actually charging less and less each year. Raise your prices. They tell me we can't.
I don't want to speak for individuals, but when I hear something like I can't help myself but wonder if there are other underlying reasons or other reasons that make this individual inspector say the words I can't. The I can't should be better qualified with I can't under certain circumstances, because under different circumstances, let me give you an example. In an area with very high home values in Dallas or any other metropolitan area, For a 1,500 square foot house being in a very high property area, marketing-wise, from a marketing standpoint, the inspector can charge 2 or 3 times the price that he would charge for the equivalent square footage in an area with a much less property value. Is that dishonest? Absolutely not, unless you have said in advance that these are my prices.
Right.
I know of inspectors who do not have a set price. They give a quote to their client based on the information they receive when the client calls them to discuss the inspection.
But this barrier they talk about, that in their markets they just can't charge more than a certain amount, that's up here?
Half and half. Part of it is in their mind, but part of it is they have to ask themselves one question. When my client asks me, why should I pay you $200 more?
Right.
What am I getting for this $200 more?
You have to answer.
You have to be able to convince them in the next 2 minutes that they should pay not only $200, they should be lucky if they can get to hire you and pay you $400 more,
right,
because the service that you provide to them is worth every penny.
I don't want to go back to insecurity again, but a lot of this has to do with like a level of confidence in your image. Am I right?
Absolutely, and some of it, some people are born with, but everybody can be taught skills
to improve.
And everybody can improve from where they currently are.
Nobody wants to hire an insecure inspector.
Absolutely not. You must. Some people just exude confidence. They walk into the room, and everybody in the room is compelled to listen to them. Those are the lucky guys.
I was a realtor for 10 years, and I always felt that my confidence held together more deals than anything that I knew as a real estate agent, or even as a home inspector.
So some people are born with natural talents. The rest of us have to develop these talents, and there is training, there is methodology, there is ways that an inspector or any person can utilize to improve. No doubt about it, Nick.
So a lot of the success of a home inspector almost has to be found in the mirror.
Absolutely. And the best policy is honesty. Look at the guy looking at you in the mirror.
And know where he's weak.
And know exactly where he's weak. Because when he realizes where he's weak, this is the first step towards eliminating this weakness, or at least improving upon it.
That's excellent advice. Is money everything to you? You make a lot of money as a home inspector, I know.
I am blessed. I can't complain. Money is absolutely important. I'm as big a capitalist as everybody else. I love money, but money is not number one. There are things that you don't need me to tell you that there are things much more important than money that cannot be bought for any amount, like love, the love of your children. There is no price. There is no price that you can pay to buy love. This is something that is freely given. So money is important, and it may be even up there with the most 3 or 4 or 5 most important things in life, but it's definitely not the number one.
Wherever your next class is going to be, anywhere in the U.S. or Canada, I'm going to be in the front row.
Well, thank you, Nick, and I will have a place reserved for you.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
We'll see you next time.